Hello and welcome back to Down the Slope, assuming we don't have tech issues once again. But as you can see, I'm joined by the wonderful Craig and Liam. Liam, how are we getting on?
I'm doing all right, mate. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. The sun's out in London for a bit longer, so I can't complain. Craig, how are we getting on?
All good, mate. Thank you.
And by the Hibs barometer of I'm good, Hibs are good, Harry's good, or is that pass marks for this week now that we've got a point on the board?
No,
No. Oh, okay. So I'm all right then. That's how I'm going to rank it. But yeah, we've obviously got a few talking points from the weekend, and by a few talking points, I mean quite a lot of talking points. But let's try and be as positive as possible because I think for the first time in maybe 4 or 5 games, we've actually got a decent chunk of positives to run through, which is nice. But Craig, talk me through it. I think the main thing we need to cover is a certain new striker slash winger that we've brought in called Bowie. Talk to me about that man.
early signs are very positive. I love his physicality. I love his get up and go. He's a wee bit unorthodox, kind of maybe a wee bit gangly looking, but it seems to work and it does a trick. He's done that sort of thing where he's just kind of bundled through a few players, like he done for the goal the weekend. But the early signs are very good, and I like the look of him.
And I think the good thing about him, Liam, is the fact that he's doing it against relatively decent teams. He's not coming against like the kind of lower echelons of the league and just bullied them. He's came in against Cameron Carter-Vickers, put a good showing in. And I think it was actually McCowan who he bullied off the ball for the goal that he scored, if I'm not
I think
mistaken.
it was him, and it was the boy Cometio who looked shocking for Dundee. To be honest, I mean, I know you're not sitting analysing Dundee players too much, but I thought he was absolutely dreadful. The boy they've signed for Liverpool. So hopefully that's just a case of a shaky debut for him because I think he had, I think, a tough time for most of the game. Didn't really see nowhere to be, but no, really impressed with Bowie as I have been really throughout. To be honest, I just think he is kind of probably been as advertised as well in terms of what we thought we were getting. That's what he's been so far. So, no, I'm pleased with him.
And talk to me a bit more about how you think that Gray could possibly get the best out of him moving forward. I know it is early days, but are you expecting him to, because obviously I had Kukurevich on as a strike partner and he was kind of up there. Are you expecting him to kind of be drifted out wide as time goes on?
I don't know, to be honest. I think he'll probably play off the right more often than not when he plays. I think if we go to a 3-5-2, there's a chance he'll play up front with Kukurevich. And I think, based on his injury record of the past, I think you'd have to say it's inevitable that Kukurevich will be out and will be missing at some point this season. So I think that'll be when he gets his opportunity through the middle. But I'm not too focused on position with him because it feels quite fluid at the moment in a 4-2-3-1. I noticed that they were sort of just not a huge amount, but there was a definitely an element of them sort of switching positions a wee bit on Saturday.
Aye. And I just like the fact that he's not like the tallest guy in the world, but he is just a big bastard, isn't he? Like Hibs haven't really had that archetype of player in a long time, and it's refreshing to see something like that. But speaking of another guy who showed a bit of not great for one of the goals, but aside from that, I actually thought he was quite solid. Liam talked to me about our new man Quan.
I actually quite liked what I saw from him. The goal aside, which will be a recurring theme on this episode, it'll be everything we'll talk about will be the two goals aside. I liked what I saw from him. I thought he got across the pitch well, certainly in the sort of horizontal. He didn't kind of. I don't think he really went sort of snapping into challenges, but he seems like he's sort of one of those players who's going to get the ball back by being quite sharp and look to press, block off passing lanes. I, I like the look of him. It's early days. It's just his debut. Obviously, you know how I love my sample size. I need to get in, enough games in before I can really make a judgment of a player. But I must say, I thought I was quite impressed.
And Craig and Liam, feel free to shoot me down because it's the type of thing that I say that you like to shoot me down for. But sometimes, Craig, where you look at a footballer when they're on the ball and they just kind of look like they're good at football, even if it's just like a 5 yard pass, you can just kind of tell by their technique. That's kind
Uh-huh.
of the vibe I got from the first couple of times he got the ball.
Yeah, I enjoyed his performance. I would probably actually say the thing I enjoyed the most was that he'd made 3 or 4 tackles or 3 or 4 fouls in the first 30 minutes. And I think that's maybe something that we've been kind of screaming out for recently as well, other than Newell, I suppose. But somebody gets stuck in. Like Liam says, he wasn't snapping in too much. But in the first half, I thought maybe he was a foul or two away from sort of getting a cumulative
Aye.
booking type one. He'd made three or four. I remember thinking to myself, oh, I think that's his third, so you need to be careful now. But you could tell towards the end he was starting to blow a wee bit, but that's obviously just a lack of matches.
I don't know if you've seen it, but in my head, so someone said that to me during the first half. We were watching the game. Like, I can't believe he's not been booked yet. And in my head, I was thinking, I don't know if you saw that clip of that Rangers fans podcast the last season or maybe 2 seasons ago, where this like Rangers stars on a total meltdown about how the Japanese and Korean players never get booked because they do this to the referee after each foul. Which is like definitely verging on some form of like discrimination, racism based on what part of the world they're from. But I just thought it was what immediately popped into my head. I was like, he's not getting booked because he's a Celtic player.
May the conspiracy long lie this season then. But yeah, and then like it's frustrating because the whole like Hibs fans love to be like, oh, if we bring in the right player, then the other midfielders will perform better, which we can come on to a bit later, wasn't really the case. I think Quan does look like he's got the potential to kind of fill that role and kind of let players have a bit more freedom and stuff, but hopefully we'll see that in the weeks to come. And then a few more positives. Craig, I know that you were relatively impressed with Nicky Caden's starting debut.
Hmm. Again, I wasn't blown away or anything like that, but there was a couple of times where he got down the left in the first half and put a couple of decent balls right across the face. I remember one in particular sort of early on. I mean, it flashed right across sort of that area, danger area between the goalie and the centre halves, and I just thought screaming out for somebody to slide in and get on the end of it. And then he had another one that went into Miko. But yeah, it definitely the same as Quan. You can tell these guys are short on minutes as the game went on. There was one counter attack that Dundee were away on down the east stand side, and Nicky Cadden just you could tell he just gave up half. He was done. Like he not even like a given up as in I can't be asked. It was just his leg just went. But I thought overall, without being sparkling for the debut, I thought it was or home debut anyway. But I thought it was decent enough. Decent enough.
And
Again, Harry, he's another one who he is like sold as advertised. Like he's the player we thought he was going to be. Like there was one particular moment in the first half where he just worked like a couple of inches of space and just got that first time crossing off the left foot. And I think that'll work really nicely for us if we do go with two up front where there's more to aim at. But quite a lot of the time he was getting the space, get across, and I think he had maybe three or four in the first half, and it was only Kukurevich in the box with maybe Boyle just sort of on the periphery at the edge. If you've got two guys in there to aim that, it gives him more chance of hitting them. But he I mean, I liked it as a signing when we signed him. I think he'll be very good for Hibs. I think he'll be very solid at this level. I think it's a nice throwback as well, just having a left footer playing on the left hand side, and a left footer with the ability to get get a decent delivery into the box, and we'll beat a potentially overlapping him down that left hand side if we're playing a 4-3-3 or a 4-2-3-1 variation of. I think that gives you two options to get the ball in the box in that area. So what we then need to do is have more guys that are prepared to go and crash the box.
Craig, you looked like you were going to say something.
I was just going to say I was enjoying how early he was getting the balls in the first half. Nicky Cadden, like there was no second thought, there was no dilly dally and waiting about. It was just boom, get the yard of space and then the ball was in. And I thought that was a wee bit contrast with Abita maybe. Feel like he's kind of second thinking himself a wee bit at the moment, whereas with Cadden it was just one touch and it's in. Albeit was like one, two, three touches. Should I put it in? No, I'll go back. So I would like to see that from both of them. And like Liam says, the overlap's going to be dangerous with Abita.
One thing with Kaden is I said it in the chat and I think it's true. I think that Nicky Caden's going to suffer from the Chris Kaden school of putting decent looking crosses into the box with nobody to score on the end of them. So I remember when Kaden first came in, there was a game I vividly remember against Dundee United, and Kaden put one of the sauciest crosses into the box I'd ever seen, and there was nobody in the box. And then people were moaning about him on Twitter, and I was just like,
Yeah.
lads, if he puts a good ball in the mixer, it's not his fault if nobody gets on the end of it. But yeah, the only thing is, Nicky, if you're watching, because as I'm sure everybody who watches us knows, all the Hibs players definitely tune in. Please stop taking free kicks because I liked your debut, but those free kicks were doing man nothing. So don't let that happen again. Speaking of which, absolute screamer, Martin Boyle. Where did that come from, mate? I enjoyed that.
Definitely took a nick off the ball.
I,
I think the goalie's saving that comfortably, to be honest.
I still think the goalie should be getting it as well, to be honest. I know it sounds a bit harsh because where it lands, but wasn't exactly the most venomous strike in the world. To be honest, if that goes on at our end, I'm probably asking question of Bursick, but I think that might just be my general anti-goalkeeping agenda, which I seem to have with every goalie that's not called off your Marciano. But no, I think it was, you can credit to him, it's a good strike, but I I think it should probably be saved.
Would you not be furious at the wall as well, letting that through? Just take it right in the pan. You've got to take that. He jumps out of the
The,
way and kind of moves to the side, and it looks like it maybe hits his arm just as it's going round him.
I think they maybe had blocked one or two free kicks before that as well
Mm.
in the game. So I think you have to be frustrated. I mean, maybe they've been surprised because I think certainly Kaden had taken the two before that, so maybe they're expecting him. I don't know if he was still standing over it or not. I've actually not seen it back, but um, aye, it's an odd one. I don't know what your vantage point was like on telly, Harry. It maybe looked better on TV than it did at the game.
Well, from mainland Europe, I saw Martin Boyle score the world's greatest overhead kick that the goalie probably should have saved. And I didn't actually get the vibe that the keeper should have saved it. It was
Right.
one of those ones I just kind of reacted like, oh, because we were that murder in the first half. I wasn't expecting a goal going into halftime, and then halftime, and then yeah, no, we got it. And I was very surprised. I was literally in the middle of sending Leah a message, being like, here, we're getting relegated, mate. But thankfully, it might not be the case now. And then last couple from me in terms of the positives. Liam, is it fair to say that Ekpiteta had his best game in a Hibs top? I think he actually looked pretty solid.
Aye, he did, and he had his best game doing what we were told again. So was advertised, like he made blocks, he put the odd sort of won the odd ground jewel, as the stats boys like to call it. A few headers. If I was going to be maybe hypercritical, I'd say maybe looked a wee bit uncomfortable in the air at times. Like the ball didn't always go in the direction that he was looking to head it in, or at least not at the trajectory that he was trying to head it. But certainly more solid, and I think that hopefully will have given him a wee bit of confidence. Albeit we conceded two goals, but he probably looked more solid in the process of doing it. And look, I know you'll get people who are tuning into this going, "You're really scraping the barrel here," but I think you have to give credit when someone's had an okay performance if you've criticised them early on. And I think the thing for this team overall, particularly with the volume of new signings, that's nine new players in the door now. It is going to take a wee bit of time for them to gel. It's just going to take a wee bit of time. Like it's not just going to come together overnight with that volume of players who are now coming all into the team at the same time. These guys are not coming here for the most part to sit on the bench. Most of them are coming at the start, so it's going to maybe delay sort of things taking shape a wee bit.
Hey, Craig, and then one final positive from me. Obviously, feel free to talk Ekpiteta if you'd like to. But Rory Molotnikov, I keep saying it. It's hard not to be excited. It does just look like he's being good every week we're seeing him.
Oh, I love him. He's brilliant, isn't he? He's just. Do you know what? It's actually not even kind of on the ball that's impressing me the most. I just love his enthusiasm and his work rate. He's absolutely all over the place, chasing. There was, I think, one in maybe in the second half down the famous five end. It just chased a nothing ball, and we got a corner out it. It's just things like that. He's just running about the place, putting his all in, and then when he does get the ball, he's got a decent amount of quality on it as well, which is has a bonus in this league. If you can put a work rate with quality in this league, then you go reasonably far. So no, I'm loving him, absolutely loving him.
Liam,
Huge
talk to me.
fan. You
Aye.
just a huge fan, just a huge fan. I mean, he's kind of everything I like in a football player, especially a young player that's coming through, and then a wee bit more on top. And I just love to see the sort of desire and the drive that some of these young guys have when they get an opportunity in the first team. But he's shown more than just that passion for the badge. He's actually shown a huge amount of quality in the time that he's been in the first team. Um, I think the way he controls a football, the way he kind of bursts through challenges, almost Kieran Bowie-esque on a couple of occasions. And okay, maybe it didn't come off for him, but he didn't seem to be disheartened by it. He would just keep going again. It's so hard to believe that he only turned 18 in May. Just the way he carries himself on the pitch, at times demanding the ball as well. Loved that. There was a couple of times where he came off the centre half and just you could see he was shouting for it. He was wanting it. Maybe not in always the right position, but I mean, the effort's there. I'm just a huge fan. I'm looking forward to watching him for hopefully years to come. I'm enjoying watching him play that much that I'm thinking I might actually buy Football Manager for the first time in years this year because I want to build a team around him with him in the 10 and then just sprinkle all the other wee bits around him because let's be honest, his rating in Football Manager this year is probably going to be sky high in it because
I
of
think
how he's performing.
I think Rory Whittaker ended with like a 4.5 star potential, so Molotnikov's got to be soaring in there at the 5 star potential. The only thing is, as soon as you start the game, you're going to get like a £3 million bid for Brentford, and he's going to be raging that you've no sold him for his 40 quid, 40,000 a week wage. But yeah, no, Rudy Molotnikov is doing all the right things. So fingers crossed it continues. And as I say, there's a bit of pressure on him though, which is the only concern for me because realistically is a starter in the current squad. Maybe that changes in the weeks to come, but we'll touch on that in a little bit. Um, David Gray, I think we need to talk about the good, the bit weird, and the terrible. To put it bluntly, so the weird, we'll start with that. I thought the team lineup was a bit strange. Like there was just a few players in there that I don't think, based off the last interview he gave, it seemed like Josh Campbell and Mariah Welsh weren't really meeting his standards. And apart from that, I was expecting the likes of a Abita and maybe Boyle to be out the team. So I did. Did either of you guys kind of second, like double take after you saw the time lineup?
So I was all right with it, to be fair. Wasn't too mad at that. Like you say, Boyle, I think he has probably been underperforming, but by the sounds of it, Bowie wasn't just quite up to match starting fitness yet. So I think that's maybe why Bowie would have been put in from the start. And ultimately, he will be a player, regardless of his form, that Gray trusts to go out on the park. So I think that he's kind of got that leg up on everybody else that Boyle's been round there with Gray in his playing time as well. So no, I'll be honest, I wasn't too angry with the starting team.
I didn't say angry. I just said weirded out.
Ah, well, sorry, not angry, but,
Liam, yourself?
No, no, I don't think so. Don't think so. I think I liked so Nathan Mariah Welsh obviously came on and I went sort of I wouldn't say snapping into some challenges, but certainly looked to come on try and make an impression. Was quite busy. Obviously had that moment sort of where he celebrated making what was a pretty significant challenge. Again, like to see it. I know it's a fairly small and insignificant thing, but no, I'm kind of I'm gradually getting a bit more comfortable with this squad as the weeks go on. I know it's not perfect, I know it's not fully there, but good to see the impact he made.
Aye. And then the good, I think the subs he made before the goal, the second goal that is, I think they were good. They were really positive, and that's probably close to the starting lineup I expected. And as Craig mentioned, there's rumours of Bowie having not been 100% up to speed. But instantly, I think we were probably in the ascendancy at that point anyway. But I think we just took full control of the game. And for that like 20-minute 25-minute period in which we had that team on the field, I just felt that it was good. It's nice when a manager changes something significant and significant results happen. But then the elephant in the room that we can't really not talk about because we've got so many comments in about it. The change to bring Rocky on. I don't think Rocky himself was the problem. I just think taking a striker off and putting on a centre back when you looked comfortable defensively was obviously hindsight's great, but I think a lot of people were rolling their eyes at the time it happened. Liam, you summarize it better than I can.
Uh, I'll be honest, and it is a wee bit hindsight of me to say because we raised eyebrows at the game at the time, but I don't think anyone was like none of my group anyway were like fizzing watching the game going, that's a horrible substitution. We were all just like, really? That's a bit odd. And I think there was a few people like a bit like um but then it was very evident what happened straight away. He brought on kind of Curtis Main, I think, to play a slightly more attacking role and get them up the pitch a wee bit more. And then we sort of brought on Rocky to kind of nullify that. But I mean, Craig, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't really think they did anything in the time that Curtis May went on the pitch. I actually felt like at 2-1, we were probably the more dominant team.
No, I agree. I agree. But the only thing I would say is that I thought we did look like we were getting a wee bit tired and that we needed some sort of
Fresh legs.
fresh legs into the team. So I understand the choice of making the sub at that point and trying to maybe change it a wee bit. But I know a lot of people are just annoyed that it sort of seemed like rather than pressing a home advantage and going for a third, we kind of were settling for the 2-1.
Aye, and it, I did the one thing I did really notice when he came on is I noticed how deep we were, almost instantaneously. Like I noticed we'd sagged off maybe 5, 10 yards and invited a wee bit of pressure on, which you can understand the logic of that with three centre halves on the pitch, but it's maybe not the most logical when you're at that point already in control of the game. I would probably like to have seen us maybe just pushed Bowie into Kukurevic's position and brought, a Luke Amos type on in midfield just to sort of continue our dominance in the middle of the park. The whole bringing centre halves on for strikers, I'll be honest, I rarely see that work at that end well, and it rarely works the other way around either. When you're chasing the game, you bring on a centre half for a striker, the old Mikey Devlin effect. I'm not a massive fan of the sub, and to be honest, some of the criticism he's probably had it coming. Really, to be honest, I actually think it is actually that fundamental and that pivotal to the game that he probably deserves quite a lot of flack for it.
Because as I say, like obviously we're massive David Gray fans. That's not a secret at all. But I don't think that should exempt him from criticism from us on the pod. It would be hypocritical if we did. So yeah, he made the wrong choice, and at least like that. The one thing I did like, he did own up to it, and he said that he had a reason for doing it. As you alluded to, it was kind of we wanted someone to match the physicality of Curtis Main, and it should be illegal for Curtis Main to have hair. Really didn't enjoy that. It's the first time I've not seen him bald. So if I was David Gray, I also would have been quite concerned. And then not wanting to rag on people too hard, but it's the players that have set the bar and they just go so far under it that are starting to really frustrate me. Abita last year won Player of the Year because he was Mr. Fundamental. Every single time he got the ball, he'd do the simple thing and he'd just keep it moving. If there was a doubt in his mind, he would lump it up the pitch. That's what I want a left back to do. First goal, unacceptable. And then Warren O'Hora, we've all said, about 3 players have got pass marks this year. He completely he doesn't even fall asleep. He just positions himself about 6 yards at the wrong position. Simon Murray gets the better of him, and obviously that just screws us in the last minute of the game. Like these players aren't bad, and the reason that I'm so annoyed with them isn't because they're bad players. It's because they make brain dead decisions that have literally cost us points. And it's so frustrating that in each of the games you can pinpoint goals that if we literally done the basics and the fundamentals correct, we would be getting more points. And these are the players in the team that we need to be role models and to set the standard. And the reason that fans are getting as annoyed as they are, like, it's just because there's no excuse. Like, what Abita done for the first goal, what Hora done for the second goal, it's just not excusable. It's angers me. And one other player, just because I'm on a rant, and then I'll throw the floor to you guys. Jonio, one time in the game, he got the ball in their half and he drove forward. We got a free kick and scored. That is the only time the whole game Jonio drove forward. If he did that 4 or 5 times a game, he would be so much better. Like when he won Player of the Year, that second half of the season, he was driving up the field so often. He just doesn't do it enough. And the one time he did it, we got a goal out of it. That's me open my kind of rants about players. As I say, I'm not saying they're bad players. I'm not saying they need to be dropped. They just need to be shaken and told, just do the fundamentals correct, because it is starting to really, really annoy me. Liam Craig, the floor is one of your guys to either rebuttal or get something off your chest if needed.
I'll take the first goal because I think we're going to do this in goal order. There's a lot of people at fault for that first goal. It's a hugely collectively bad goal, and I'm almost probably talking about half the team here when I'm saying that. Joe Neal's positioning, Obita's initial clearance, Nicky Caden's half-hour slide tackle. I think you can probably put something on the 2 centre halves. There's just so much that's wrong with it. It's really weird with Jordan Obita because as much as we're a moments team in attacking, it's individual moments that are getting us goals when we're scoring, but we're also a moments team when we're defending because we're not defending as a unit. So what we're seeing is little individual errors like the one that Obita had been really costly. But actually Jordan Obita did a lot of really good things on Saturday. Like he's still got that super strength from last season of just single-handedly being able to shield every single ball out of play. The number of times he got across when there was counter attacks from corners and free kicks up the other end of the pitch. was brilliant. He's still doing lots of really good stuff, but that error is just so basic. It's, to your point, Harry, about fundamentals. It's what you're taught really from the early age. And the most frustrating thing is he does actually have a wee bit of time. He's probably one of those rare times where he's actually got enough time to get a touch in his own box and clear it. So that's my views on the first goal, but I'll let Craig take the second goal because I don't know what to talk about.
That's your boy, man. That's rough. It's rough.
It is. Aye.
It was bad. It was bad because I think the second one, everything that O'Hara's looked good for so far since he's come in, positioning has been very good. But he just switches off, doesn't he? And that is ultimately what is costing us just now is individual errors and players switching off. I agree with Harry pretty much everything that you said to sort of bring us in there about a few different players, maybe not quite as strong. But yeah, it's not good. And I actually thought when he got done on the wrong side by Simon Murray, and then he kind of got back in, and I thought there was a wee chance for him to throw his leg in just before Simon Murray took the shot. And I think he could have because he was out of position and got back in. And I thought, just fling your leg in there, and you would have been able to kind of block it in between yourself and the keeper. But it's just a disaster, really, isn't it? Especially that late on. But it is what it is.
Aye. And then just one other cause for concern. I want to throw it out there because we discussed it. I think Bursic has maybe made 2 saves in his first 8 games now, or however many he's maybe played 6. For me, I don't like most of the goals haven't been savable, but in my head, but it's one of those things if a keeper pulls off a good save, then you know, it's always hard to judge with a keeper, but I do feel we're quite often very harsh on keepers. And the one thing I did feel bad for him Thursday was getting booed, and then he kicked the ball and it went straight at the pitch, and I was like, it's just not your day, lad, is it? That was a bit of a shame in the first half. And one final bit on this game, and then we can move on to happier topics. That we were robbed of one of the loudest ever halftime boos at Easter Road because it was getting booed every time it went out the pitch. If we'd went in 1-0 down at halftime, oh my God, it would have taken the roof off the place. Raj. But yeah, any final thoughts on the game? Or are we happy to move on to what's to
Can
come?
I just go back
Just
and touch on a wee bit there?
Aye, go for
Because I
it.
actually feel he's have done a wee bit of a disservice. I know he shanks it, but these things happen. I think more of the blame is on what happens after it. Because I think when it drops to Lyle Cameron, I think it was Lyle Cameron on the edge, it's so we can deal with it. It's so easy to deal, or not easy, but it's dealable with. For me, the major mistakes happen after that. But at the moment, we're making one mistake, and then we're making a second, a third, and a fourth, maybe even a fifth, and then we're getting a goal put into us. I think that's a bit harsh on a beater because it happens. You sclaff the ball sometimes.
I think it's more to what Liam touched on, though. I don't think it was just a sclaff. It was more of the panic.
Maybe a wee bit of a swipe, yeah.
He's just a player that I'd expect more composure from. I just think the main reason he scuffed it was because of the lack of composure, and he just kind of oh, get this ball away from me. And it's not the type of thing I would expect to see from Jordan Beater. But yeah, agreed. Everybody else embarrassed themselves as well. So
I just
yeah,
wanted to help him out a wee bit there.
no worries. I think Liam did a good job. Anyway, Liam, what else did you want to say on the game?
No, not a massive amount else to be honest, mate. I just I do think the booing was a wee bit unnecessary at various points of the game. It was the first half an hour were really poor, really poor. So I could understand people being really frustrated. But I actually thought the second half was quite a good contest. It's quite a decent game of football. I just felt like some of the booing maybe was a wee bit counterproductive and a bit over the top. I think we're trying. I know we've been pretty impatient, as a sort of group of four. I think we need to try and give this current group of players a bit more of a chance, to be honest, and the manager a bit more of a chance. I don't really want them to be turning up to home games getting, every second touch getting booed. Having said that, there are things that obviously the coaching staff and the playing staff could do a little bit smarter that would get fans on side, such as not wasting time taking short goal kicks when you're 1-0 down at home. I know there's a style and there's a way and all that sort of stuff, but there's also this thing called pragmatism where you're supposed to play the situation and not just go into sort of default. I've been given this instruction mode, autopilot essentially.
Yep. Well, speaking of which, let's get rid of some of this autopilot and let's talk about who we can see coming into the club. Obviously, we've got our transfer window live that's going to happen on Friday. Liam, talk to me about timings.
Timings. I think we're going to go live from 8 o'clock on Friday night. I think I should probably be a bit more confident than that now. We're going live on 8 o'clock on YouTube. Got ourselves all the usual faces, and then I think some guests who will be popping in over the period of time. We're not sure how long we're going to be on for. We might be an hour. If it's going to be really dramatic, we might be 4 or 5 hours. Who knows? If we are going to be 4 or 5 hours, someone maybe wants to just let my daughter know so that she sleeps in a wee bit on Saturday morning. That would be really nice. But no, I think we're all looking forward to Friday night because essentially, like Edinburgh Festival is over, but we're going to be doing some improv for probably a period of time, just try to keep everyone going. I might need to go to Michael Scott's improv class to learn how to do it.
Craig, are you excited for that? Your first live transfer special?
Should be good, mate. I think it's kind of shaping up for there might be a wee bit of business on Friday, to be fair, because it's we're told that there's going to be both incomings and outgoings, so hopefully there's plenty to talk about. Like William says, you don't want to be filling in too much time.
Hey, indeed. But then anyway, so yeah, as always, just come on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify, then give up on that and go on YouTube for the day. But yeah, and on our Twitter, we'll be promoting it and stuff. So please do come along and join us. And as Lee mentioned, we're going to have some new faces. So if you want to come on and give your opinion, then please feel free to drop us a DM comment on YouTube and how to contact you, and we'd love to have you on. Anyway, moving on to the transfer window. We can't talk about this too much, or we'll have literally nothing to talk about on Friday. However, Luke McCowan, the saga goes on. We had two bids rejected. We put a third bid that was apparently under consideration and is still under consideration of 750k. There was one moment that really impressed me from him. He picked up the ball off one of the centre backs in the second half, and he ended up on the edge of our box, and they nearly scored from it. And I was like, that was absolute gravy. I was like, that is literally the type of player we need that will actually move, like, will transition the team up the pitch. And that was for me, like, it just felt like that's what we're missing. Like, we just don't really have that connection that will bring the whole team together. And that gave me the faith that with Quan, I think the third man, if we were to get McCowan in, I think could fill in the gaps nicely. Craig, were you impressed with McCowan? Did you have an extra eye on him just with all the rumours?
Of course I did. I enjoyed his performance. I actually like it because when we first kind of were rumoured to be wanting to sign him, I had in my head it was like just an out and out attacking midfielder, a little like sort of jinky player, like not really that physical, but he actually looks like he can mix it up a wee bit, just in more in a general sort of midfield sense. But with undoubted quality on the ball, obviously hits the base of the post with a free kick, and that was the second half, which that's a great effort. It's really unlucky. Uh, so I think he looks like he could be a player that if we get him in, he'll be able to do a wee bit of both the sort of defensive, more sort of robust side of the midfield uh, operations, and it'll also be able to add a wee bit of quality going forward as well.
Liam, were you impressed with what you saw? Was there any downsides?
Uh, no,
The goal,
no, no. I mean, I
era
suppose you'd
nightmare
have
there.
to say, you'd have to say it's a very good save there, Craig, for me, because I was going to say no. That would obviously be a downside. I was actually impressed with. I know it's pretty cliche to say it because I think everyone was impressed after the Hearts game, but I was impressed with all three of the Dundee midfield again. As you know, as much as we probably weren't at it the first half hour, I think a big part of the reason we weren't was because of how good they were. I've been probably less hot on them, so some others, but I thought even Silla, I thought looked, in fact, probably argue he was maybe the most impressive of the three on Saturday. And I do, I've said before I like Lyle Cameron, so I mean, they they I don't think they will be a million miles away from top six this season. And I think a lot of that's probably in spite of their sort of back five, which I think is actually pretty probably a weaker element of the team. I actually think that they're from sort of middle to front. I think they're quite a good side, Dundee. But yeah, I didn't really learn anything new about McCowan because I've watched a fair bit of him at this point. But no, I was sort of, I'd say, mildly impressed.
Like, I don't know if you guys agree with the summary, but like how was it? McCowan for me is like the perfect striker in the Scottish Championship that not striker, sorry, midfielder in the Scottish Championship that just kind of does everything and is like the star man, but for some reason it's translated well into the top flight. Like I just think the qualities that he's got, as Craig says, he's kind of like a terrier and he will just run all over the pitch and just annoy everybody. But then he also does have a really high level of quality and he looks out at like I think he looks levels above Dundee. I agree Silla had a really good game, but I think he's more on the like brutal side of just destroying attacks as opposed to actually like the nice finesse that McCowan has. So yeah, if we get him in, I'm on board. Fair play to Ewan for calling that last January, I think was the first time that he said we should be in for him. So yeah, big
Yeah,
up
it's
Ewan
6
on that one.
months earlier every time Ewan talks about it on the podcast. Just try to get himself more and more credit.
Well, I was saying when he was at Air United, we should have got him. Nah, Ewan's not said that yet. Yet is the key word. And the other one that I've seen as a potential, I don't know if this would be the backup option, but Marcondes, would we want him back if McCowan falls through? Craig, come at you first.
Yeah, I would probably take him on without getting into too much of the like sort of financial sides and whether that would take away too much off our budget or other signings or whatever. But just on the face of things, I feel like he maybe wasn't up to full speed sort of in his wee spell with us last season. Maybe that if he can get up to full speed, full fitness, that there is a quite a decent player in there. Well, there obviously is because he wouldn't have been at the level that he has been at if he wasn't a good player. I do appreciate that there is sort of concerns about, like I said, if we sign him, it's going to limit us doing other things. But if that fell through, I would say maybe put a wee bit of money towards that and get him in. So yeah, I'd take him.
Liam yourself.
Probably a no from me, just on the basis I think we've got too many bodies already in that area of the pitch, and I just thought I wouldn't. If you're going to sign him, he's probably the kind of player who, let's be honest, is expecting to start, and I think it maybe blocks potentially pathway for the likes of Molotnikov, for example, into the first team. Based on the quality of player he is, I think yes, it's a no-brainer. But I think given the shape of the squad at the moment, I would rather we put our resources elsewhere.
I would personally be a no because I think if you bring in Marcondes, you need another player. I don't think he does enough off the ball to warrant bringing him in. Whereas I think McCowan would have the graft, and that's something that I saw at the weekend that I was impressed with. I do think that you'd get at least 70 minutes of him powering around the entire pitch, which with Marcondes we saw he's happy to be a luxury player, and I don't think he'd deny that himself. So, yeah, another name I just wanted to throw out there. I've seen that Lyndon Dykes is supposedly on the move. Could we afford him? Probably not. But would he be a good addition? Probably. I just think another big bastard type where you can just kind of throw him up and he'll annoy people and score quite a few goals, I would think, if he came up. Would that be a sign that would excite you, Craig?
I don't know if I would say excite. I, I like him. I think he does has a role. I'm speaking purely from a Scottish football fan's perspective because I've not really watched him much out with that. Obviously, when he was at Livingston, but I can't say I studied Livingston's football in depth. To be fair, when he was there, but he, like you say, he provides you a definite role in a team. I don't think he would deny that himself. Probably similar to Marcondes as well. I think he just is the guy that'll be up top, stick his elbows in people's faces and annoy them. He seems to have decent quality, to be fair, when he gets on the ball. I think he probably is above our level, maybe. I don't think I think it'd probably be a wee bit ambitious to expect Lyndon Dykes to come back to Scotland for Hibs. I think if he was coming back, it'd probably be for one of the two Old Firm teams. But listen, I'd take it.
Nice. London Dykes for yourself, Liam?
No, I'd be all over it, but I think he'll end up in the English Championship based off nothing other than I think
Finances.
whilst he doesn't score a lot of goals, I think what he provides to a team that plays 2 games a week in terms of his physical presence, I think is so valuable in that league. I actually think, to be honest, a player like him, I know he's not done great in terms of goal scoring at QPR, but if you watch his performances for Scotland, you would think he almost plays or probably should play at a higher level in the English Championship, but he doesn't. So maybe shows you that people appreciate some of the more refined aspects of football rather than what Lyndon Dykes might provide.
Aye. And then the last few ins, these I've categorized them as rumored ins, but these are just kind of me looking at Bournemouth's website and assuming that we're going to sign some of their players because what
You've
other
definitely
option?
made a couple of these up.
Yeah, no, 100%, yeah. Well, one of them, Bevan, since he joined us in January, I think we've all just expected him to come back to the club, and I'm slightly spooked that it's not happened yet. It does seem like an easy fix to just have a bit of coverage. So it is a bit strange if he is coming that he's not been here yet. Um, One of the names I've just been informed is signed for Watford, so Jebison, you will not be named. And then the other one I've just wanted to throw out there, who's probably signed for like bloody Charlton or something as well. Will Dennis. I know some people have been blinking whenever they've seen the team lineup, and it's a goalkeeper that they're not too comfortable with. As I say, I still think Bursic can come good. But Will Dennis had a really good stint at Kilmarnock last year, I believe it was. So I'd be comfortable if you can be good for a full season and get fourth for Kilmarnock or fifth or wherever they finished. Then you're probably good enough for Hibs, to be fair. Anybody else at Bournemouth I've forgotten about?
Bill
Mm.
Foley, thank you for coming and do the job.
Um,
I take the manager starting right back. What a player he was, by the way. Um, no, I don't think I don't think you're missing anyone. I don't really know an awful lot about Bournemouth's reserve and academy team, to be honest. There's probably one or two that we haven't heard of who are probably getting floated to us. But I would imagine the guys that are coming in from Bournemouth, if they are, would probably be coming in, and with the exception of Will Dennis, would be coming in as sort of squad players.
There was one boy that you'd really like. His name's Kian Tideman, and he's an Irish midfielder. And then Ewan would also like him because he was banging in goals for their youth team. And I don't think he's actually made a full, like, a starting team debut for any professional clubs. But if we want to get excited over an Irish midfielder, he could be our attacking mid.
The Irish midfielder they've got, which I always think is really weird because he was a player going years back. Gavin Kilkenny's still there, who's been there like since forever and hasn't played, I think, primarily because of injury problems, but like hasn't even had a loan out, I don't think, for a little while. I think he would potentially be someone that you would I thought we would at least be looking at so that they could get him some minutes and get him in the shop window, but it seems not. I wouldn't be against it just based on his pedigree, but obviously injury concerns there. And also he's a centre midfielder, and we've already got about nine of them. So
Aye, fair. But it means him and Quan can have a good relationship and can just kind of juggle back and forth that position. And then in terms of people that we would like to see develop away from the club slash leave, I'll just try to be polite, but yeah, I'll name the five that I have, and if you want to add anybody else to the list, then we can do. So I've got McCurdy just because he's not featured much, Jair just because he's supposedly on a decent wage comparative to the performances that he puts in. Amos. I think we're all hoping that he could still come good, but with the performances we've seen so far this season, doesn't look likely. Jake Doyle-Hayes, who unfortunately seemed to have been crippled by Lee Johnson, so fingers crossed he can either get back to fitness and play for the club again, or could leave. And then I had such high hopes for him, but Mr. Kenna, who went to Shrewsbury last season, I think he's still at the club, but I don't think he's been loaned out again. But if he's not going to play, I would definitely try and get him at least on loan for the season. So yeah, anybody obvious that I've missed from that?
Jake Doyle Hayes, did you say Jake Doyle Hayes?
Yeah, he was
Yep,
the one
yeah.
that said got crippled by Lee Johnson.
Oh, thank you. I, 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 I no none. I don't think there's any. Al Allen or Ferry.
All right, yeah, yeah, probably
Uh,
probably alone as well though. I don't know if we need to shove him on him. Okay, we can just move him on. It's okay. I'll stop being nice then.
yeah. I mean, maybe alone, but I mean, like, for what purpose? Like, I think the club's mind, weirdly, even though we only gave Delferry a contract last season, I think the club's mind's kind of made up on him. So I just, I mean, there's so many. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily be actively trying to move them on at this stage, but I think the club would be prepared to listen to offers for Rocky Bashiri and Dylan Levitt. I like Levitt, and I'm kind of okay with Rocky, but I also think we should be aiming to do better. So, you know, like why not? Why not if there was a reasonable offer? But I think the ones that you mentioned, Harry, would be a priority. I can ask you both a question. If we were only to move one player on between now and the end of the window, which player would you choose?
Greg, you can take that first, mate.
Tavares. No comment. No, I'm not giving any meat on the bone of that one. That's it. Tavares.
Aye. I'm, you know what? I'm going to do what all the, you know how you get that young generation of Twitter users that don't have a profile picture, but they're like named after a Hibs player. I'm in there, but I still want Harry McCurdy to come good, so I'm not going to say him. I'll also say Tavares. I think that the Tavares experiment, we've tried it, and I just don't think it's going to work. Unfortunately. What about yourself, Liam? Uno reverse.
Probably Harry McCurdy, to be honest. I think he might be the most
Ah.
difficult one to shift.
Hmm.
I think that would be my rationale for choosing him. I think Amos may be quite difficult to shift just on the basis that he's obviously had kind of fitness issues. I don't think he's a bad football player, Luke Amos, but I just don't. No one's really seen enough of him for Hibs to really have an opinion one way or the other. And the fact that the midfield's been so poor and he's so experienced, and yet he still can't get a game in the midfield, I find that a bit odd.
Aye, bizarre. But speaking of things that are a bit odd, let's throw together our starting 11 for the weekend. Craig, any change to the back five, including keeper?
Do we not start as a back four?
Yeah, not, but I
Oh,
was meaning
including the keeper. Sorry,
including keeper.
sorry.
Aye. So the keeper doesn't
Uh,
technically.
Thanks for that. No, I
Just
wouldn't
going to get the
change it.
salt and pepper out and explain the offside rule to you in a wee minute as well, Craig.
I just had back five in my mind, just totally went into assault Harry mode. No, I wouldn't change much. I wouldn't change much about the back four. Maybe Chris Kaden if he was feeling up to it, but other than that, if he's not sort of starting fit, I would leave it as it is
Aye.
and just tell him to just be better.
I reckon as well for O'Hora, obviously pretty bad mistake, but I think that's more of a cuff around the ear as opposed to a drop him, in my opinion. So yeah, I think I'd probably rock with the same back four. Liam, any changes in the midfield or attack, or do you rock with the same starting 11?
I think you have to find a way to get Bowie into the 11. To be honest, I think it's kind of at that stage now where we've seen enough of him. We're quite tantalised at the prospect of him starting a game. I quite like the matchup of him going up against sort of Kilmarnock's four centre backs in their back four, if that's what they go with. So I think he would be have to find a way to get him in, potentially at the expense of Caden, maybe. Which feels harsh, but certainly Caden or Boyle. Tough to come out from.
Being honest, I've said it during games, and I think at the moment, until we get another midfielder in, I think we're really struggling to make a connection with the midfield. And I'd personally rather start with two strikers, even if it means that Bowie's technically in behind Kukurevich or Big Mick. I just don't think that the midfield's going to work no matter what combination of three we're going to put in. So I'd probably start what looks like a 4-4-2, but as Liam says, is kind of that fluid 4-2-3-1. I'd have probably Newell and Quan, and then I'd have what do you call it? Rudy one wing, Boyle the other, and then I'd have Big Mick and Bowie up top. So that'd be me. Because I think if the midfield isn't working, just play with an attack and defence, and then see if the guys can get themselves involved where possible. Because I think we've now played about 4 games with an anonymous midfield, and until we can find something to crack that solution, I think you should just do the best with what you've got. Does that sound horrendous to you guys?
No.
I'm not. I see people are calling for 4-4-2 again.
Because that's
I
like
think
the only reason I'm calling for 4-4-2 is I just don't think the three is doing anything. Like I just think like we've just not done anything in the midfield. Even when like our 2 goals came from like what were essentially set pieces, where you see thrown in set piece or not. And then like I just don't think we're doing. And even when we are attacking, we're going wide
mm,
typically and getting crosses into the box. So I just think if you have an extra body forward, it's not like taking someone out of the midfield at the moment would make a mess. Like I
Do
just don't.
formations really matter that much?
No, I'm not. That's what I'm saying. So I see it more as
mm,
having just an extra attacker who's going to linger further up the field for the most part.
Cut out the mistakes.
Um,
Just cut out the mistakes and pick up a few more second balls and do those two, and it won't matter what formation you're in. We're better already. I think I don't buy so much into formations making like all the difference in the world. Ultimately, for me, the formation didn't didn't make us not win that game at the weekend. It was because we switched off. I don't think the formation helped, but I think that ultimately we were cost by yet again another mistake in switching off. So we just need to do the small things better. Stop, as Gray said, stop one mistake turning into three or four, and we'll have a much better chance.
Yeah, I feel the same. Like, and I understand people's appetite to get too up front again, but I think you do kind of also have to remember we've only really got two recognised sort of
Yeah.
strikers at the club, and you play both of them, and then one goes down, then all of a sudden your sort of plan all goes to pot. So I think we've got to be careful with that. I also don't think there's a huge number of teams that play with two up front unless it's 3-5-2 who are successful, as far as I know, in world football. So yeah, you know my views on formations. I'll not go into that again, but I do think I do think it's a bit odd that we've got all these calls to kind of go back to something that didn't really work for so much of last season. And I think if you're already giving up a lot in midfield, I think to take another midfield out of there when it already looks like there's gaping holes in the team, I think would potentially lead to there being even more gaps. Might not, because not everything works the way that you logically think it will, but out of possession, there were some pretty alarming gaps on Saturday that I think if you had even one less midfielder in there, that would give me some cause for concern.
Well, my thinking was the bar cannot be possibly lower. But yeah, and also you
Just
haven't
try
heard
Rocky in
about.
there, mate. Just stick Rocky in there, remember?
Some people are saying Rocky or Lewis Miller. Like I'm saying,
Rocky at
guys, grow
CVM.
up, grow up. Um, aye, but you've also not heard about secret agent Josh Campbell, false nine. But that's a story for another day. Obviously at the end of every episode we give our predictions, and I think so far if all our predictions were correct, Hibs would be joint top of the league with, and in a League Cup quarter final with nothing but wins so far. Craig, are we keeping that momentum going? Are we as down the slopes winning streak continuing?
Yep, absolutely. I actually think this is probably our best chance for a win so far. I think Kilmarnock look pretty ropey every Sunday. They're obviously, I'm hoping, going to on Thursday go to extra time, penalties, the lot. It's going to be as difficult a game as possible. So they have 12 odd players out injured going into Sunday. But I think we're going to win 3-1.
3-1 the cabbage. Liam, talk to me. Score.
I mean, similar logic to Craig. I think them just being in Europe, I think will have an impact. Unfortunately, they're at home, and I think it's very unlikely they're going to go to extra time, given they're 2-0 down from the first leg, which is a real pity. Um, but I still think it's quite a lot of emotional investment in that game. I think that will help us. I think we will obviously have. I think we'll have at least one more new player in the starting 11, potentially maybe a couple more in the starting 11 as well, which will help us. So I'm going to go 2-1 Hibs. I don't think we're capable of keeping a clean sheet, but I do think we'll score goals. I want a prediction from each of you as well before we finish. How many players do you think we're going to sign between now and the end of the window?
Oh, all right. Well, if I'll just do two predictions back to back. I'm going to go bold. I'm going to go for a resounding 3-0 Hibs. Because we've actually had a positive episode for a change, so why not have a positive score prediction? And our defense is just going to show us that they are the kings of the land. And in terms of new signings, oh, I'm going to guess three is the volume of players that we bring in. I don't know what positions they fill. But if we can somehow shed two or three of the ones we want to get rid of, I reckon that could go up to four. But I'm going to lock in three for now. Craig.
Oh, here, I agree, Harry. You took the words right out of my mouth. I think it's definitely going to be three, possibly rising to four, depending if Rocky goes out the door or not.
Right. Liam.
I think we're going to have a busy deadline day. I think Yuan is going to move between now and the
Oh,
deadline. That's the
yeah,
one
that's
player we've
true. I
not
forgot
touched
about that.
on. I think he will go, and I think we'll see a couple other players who, have been playing. I think like Nolan Kenna will probably go, and I think maybe two or three others will go, which I think will set trend in motion. I think we'll sign five on not on deadline day itself, but between now and deadline day. Probably quite a steady stream. Probably I'm going to guess there'll be two or three at the window because the last time that we did a Twitter space, there was quite a lot of drama at the window. So it might not be the same for our YouTube live. I think the club are going to keep it all in store, and we're going to be busy boys that night, researching what the Lorient backup right back is like and how he's been performing in League D2, as one of our previous guests said.
Well,
So,
guys,
busy.
on that happy note, be ready for action, be ready for Friday, and we will catch you there. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you on Friday.
Cheers,
Goodbye.
boys.
Cheers.